It's been a significant off-season for North Melbourne, who have swung the axe on key personnel while employing seasoned coach Alastair Clarkson to the helm. Their promising youth is embellished by the man sitting in front of me, Charlie Lazzaro. Entering his third year, he's played 24 matches through 2 seasons and has had the ability to adapt a new forward craft after being a pure midfielder leading up to his draft year in 2020, where he was taken at pick number 36. Pleasure to have you, mate. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me on, Dill. Pleasure to be here.
Let's kick things off with a bit of background information for our viewers at home. So, you captained the under 16 Victorian country team back in 2018 and then drafted out of St Mary's in Geelong and Geelong College. You blitzed the final year at the Geelong Falcons, averaging 20 disposals a game through 8 games. Were you comfortable around this stage that you would be drafted?
It's always an interesting one, Dill. I think it was so my top age year, unfortunately, as you know, was kind of taken away from me during COVID. So my bottom age season was the one where I managed the 8 games through Falcons and spent a lot of time at Geelong College where I went to school. I don't think you ever know if you're going to get drafted. I think there's always an inkling that you might be going okay, or you feel like that your performances are starting to stack up and you're hoping that recruiters are watching and you're able to kind of get some runs on the board. But I don't think you ever know for sure. Anything can happen on draft night. You often hear stories about players that were absolute stars all the way through their junior careers and ended up missing out on draft night, or vice versa, someone who didn't go quite as well and you thought might have missed out and ended up getting picked really high. So I think it's one of those intriguing, interesting intricacies that you'll never really know. Recruiters are looking for all kinds of different things. And, I was just really fortunate that I'd done enough in my bottom age year. And I think throughout my juniors, I was able to put some pretty solid seasons together, and that kind of held me in good stead. And I was able to get drafted in the national draft and haven't really looked back since.
Yeah, well, was the passion always there from a young age to play AFL, or were there other sports contending as well?
There was a few contending as a kid. I think as a kid, you always, I think back to me, I always wanted to play AFL. I think from a really young age, I love footy and love the competitiveness of all sports. But dad played a lot of football growing up, and he was probably a major reason that I started playing from a young age. But there was a variety of sports that I played. Like I played cricket, a bit of football, obviously, athletics, basketball.
Mhm.
I remember when I was younger, I really loved basketball, and I was hoping one day I was able to take it somewhere, but I
Yeah.
didn't end up growing too much more from the age of 13. So
Yeah.
that one got shot down pretty quickly. So I kind of had to look to something else. But
Yeah.
yeah, I loved a lot of sports growing up and was able to play a fair few all the way through, which was really enjoyable.
Any key childhood memories? Doesn't necessarily have to be footy related. Making you wind back the clock here.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that really stands out to me
Mm.
sport wise.
Yeah.
Um, More just so like I've got a younger brother.
Mhm.
We're very, very close, but very competitive.
Mm.
He's 2 years younger than me, and most of my memories are probably with him in the backyard, either playing basketball or cricket or footy or something, and just enjoying each other's company. At the time, we were always very competitive, but love him to bits, and yeah, he's a star. So it was really good to kind of have someone to play sport with and enjoy that moment together
Mhm.
before you know you kind of get into a professional environment, and it's pretty full on, which is also good.
Now, speaking of close relationships, for those who don't know, Charlie grew up a close friend of Ollie Henry, who's recently transferred over to the Cats from the Magpies in the off season. How's the competitiveness with him? You've had two close battles so far. One last year, which was a nail biter, and then an 18-point battle in 2021.
Yeah, it's been really, really enjoyable watching old play. We actually grew up about, I'd say, 3 streets apart in Geelong together. Most weekends we spent over at each other's house,
Yeah.
which was always good. But he went to a local primary school a little bit further down the road to me. And then obviously we played at St Mary's together, our local club, literally just across the road from GMHBA Stadium.
Mhm.
And yeah, we've basically been were best mates from about 10 years old. Spent all our footy together, which was really, really good. We were able to kind of progress through the Vic Country system together, and the Geelong Falcons as well. So yeah, he's a really good friend of mine and someone that I spend a lot of time with. And it's going to be interesting. Hopefully, a fair few more battles in years to come, and hopefully, I'm able to come out on top because I think he's got two on me so far.
Yeah, close last year.
Close last year, yeah.
Has there been any humorous conversations in close proximity on the field?
Nothing really. Like, we're kind of at the opposite end of the ground at the moment. So maybe if he swings down back and I'm in forward, or if we're able to maybe line up on each other in the midfield, if he builds up his tank a bit more, we'll be able to see. But nothing just yet.
What's been the highlight for you so far in your career?
I think my first goal was a pretty surreal moment. I think every kid dreams of kicking a goal, playing in AFL. And your first one's always, a really memorable one. Mine was on Good Friday. We ended up losing that game, unfortunately. But just to kick your first goal and kind of have that exhilarating feeling of, ticking off a lifelong dream, it's pretty surreal. I think you still kind of like, even just thinking back on it now, you go, wow, I'm just glad that I was able to do that. And then you look at someone like Lance Franklin, who's kicked over 1,000 goals in AFL. You just go, that's just remarkable. Like, to be able to be that good for that long. It's pretty special.
And in your opening game, how were the nerves?
Very nervous still. Yeah. Very, very nervous. My first game was actually, I was the medical sub against Port Adelaide. We played at Marvel Stadium. So I ended up having to wait till probably about the 10-minute mark of the last quarter to come on. And I got on, and all I was thinking was, please just get one possession. Just get one possession when you come on. And I was lucky that I ended up doing that and took a couple of bounces, which was nice. But I kind of look at that one as like, you're so nervous the whole day, and you just want to come on and do it. And when you finally do it, you go, oh, wow, I finally ticked off, another lifelong goal, like kicking your first goal. To be able to just get on and say that I've played one game. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Did you find that more cruel in a way when you had to wait there itching to get on?
I think in a sense it is a little bit, but then I also kind of realized that, it's your first year, not many kids get an AFL game in their first year, let alone, in their career. So I think it was a little bit hard at the time to kind of go, I'm sitting on the bench. It's my first game. I haven't been able to play, but I also kind of look at it in a grateful perspective and go, I could have been playing the VFL for 15 weeks and then finally get my debut. I was lucky that I ended up playing the next 10 games, I think. So, I was able to play a full game the next week in Gold Coast, round 2, which was also good. But just to be able to say I ticked that off and being able to debut, it's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah, one of few for sure. Now, on a broader scale, has the club set, or have you set expectations as a whole heading into this year?
We've tried to keep the sky as the limit, deal. I think it's really difficult to set expectations when you don't really know what we're capable of. We've obviously brought in a new coach, Alastair Clarkson, which is really exciting. Todd Viney's come on board. Jen Watt's come on board. We've got Sonia Hood as a president, who's done a fantastic job. I just think that once the ball starts rolling and, everything starts fitting into place and we mold the game plan around what Clarko wants to do, I think it's going to be, I'm really bullish and really optimistic about what we can do. And I think that a lot of people might underestimate, hopefully, what we're able to do this year. But internally, we haven't set any expectations or benchmarks. It's more just about following the process of what we've kind of stuck to and being able to kind of execute what we're trying to do on game day.
And as you mentioned, newly appointed Alastair Clarkson, who's probably one of the most coveted coaches ever, you could say, 4-time premiership coach with the Hawks. We were talking off air just briefly and how he's actually brought the club down to his farm in Cape Shank. How was that as an experience? and everyone's gelling together by the looks of it.
Yeah, it was really exciting, Dill. I think just to be able to kind of get down to his property, see kind of what he values, have everyone together, be able to kind of just bond a little bit, outside of the four walls of the club, and kind of be able to see guys doing different sorts of things, and talk about kind of what they enjoy outside of football. Yeah, it was really good. I think you probably learn a lot about some of your teammates that you didn't know, or they kind of are able to show a different side of themselves when you're not in the four walls of the club and it's all business. I think you get a really good look and a really good perspective on, who you actually play with. And, we've got a great group of guys, and hopefully there's only really positive things to come.
We'll venture into some wacky moments in a moment because I do want to learn a little bit more about the teammates, as you said. But finally, was there a main influence growing up in your career? I know you mentioned your dad played a fair amount of football. Was he the primary influence, or was there a bigger role model? For example, if you're talking about AFL legends, you could say Wayne Carey, North Melbourne legend. But how about you?
Yeah, so for me, Dill, I was a massive Geelong supporter growing up.
Yeah.
I went to the games every week, lived, a couple of streets away from GMHBA Stadium in Newtown. So I was very lucky. I was able to kind of go with my family and watch Geelong play very regularly. In terms of AFL football role models, Joel Selwood was probably the one I idolised. I think he just epitomised everything about Geelong, and a great captain and leader and a player. I couldn't speak more highly about him. And I remember the first time I got to play against him. It was pretty crazy. And then I think in terms of my biggest influence, I think Dad was in terms of, my sporting career and kind of being able to push me to play football. But I think in terms of my biggest mentor would probably be my mum. I feel like she's just been the soundboard for everything that I've done. Whether I've been, really successful, or I've had a bad day, or, I've done something that she's not really wrapped with. She's always letting me come back with open arms, and she's probably been the one person that's never wavered her support or her love and care for me. So I think I probably wouldn't be the person I am without her today. And she's probably been a major reason as to why I am the way I am. I probably couldn't thank her enough for what she does for me. She's an absolute star.
And I'm sure she would have been incredibly proud once you hopped off the sub bench.
That's it. That's it.
All right, to some wacky moments now. Any funny moments around the club or inside jokes that have possibly emerged onto the field?
Well, Ben and Harry Mackay have just started a podcast. I'm not sure if you've seen. And Benny refers to himself as Chris Hemsworth in that. So we've started calling him Thor around the club a little bit because that's a bit of a good laugh. So I'm not sure if it'll translate onto the field, but that's probably the most recent laughable kind of joke going around at the moment.
So my question to you is, if Ben is Thor, what does that make Harry?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. I'm gonna have to come up with something there, but they both look exactly the same anyway. So it's two Thors, I guess, if you're going to go with that.
Yeah, and I know there's been conjecture in the past about whether or not they're the same person.
No, I can confirm I have seen them in the flesh. They are their own person. But it would have been quite funny, if they were the same person.
You heard it here first, viewers. All right, we've got some quick fire questions now, which could potentially expose a few teammates, not in a bad sense, just in a humorous sense. So, for example, who would be the most likely to forget someone's birthday?
Tom Powell.
Tom Powell. Any explanation, or you just keeping it low?
I just know he wouldn't remember.
Most likely to go on Love Island.
Jaden Stevenson.
I'm sure that might not be surprising to a few people. What about most likely to become a millionaire?
Oh, I'm gonna say, it's a good question because there's a few guys that fancy themselves as being pretty good with money. I'm going to say Luke McDonald.
Luke McDonald, all right. The vet.
Yeah,
Most likely to become an actor. I know you mentioned Ben Mackay and
yeah, Ben Mackay.
Ben Mackay would
Chris
be.
Hemsworth. Yeah, he'll have a crack.
Most likely to have pineapple on pizza. This could be yourself.
Oh. Yeah, no, I love pineapple on
Pineapple
pizza.
on pizza.
Yeah, I'm a big pineapple on pizza guy.
Most likely to be late or sleep in for an important club meeting.
Oh, Phoenix Spicer.
Phoenix Spicer. I
Yeah.
feel like it's potentially happened before, the way you
Yes,
sound confident. It
that
has.
has happened before.
And what about the most likely to take mark of the year on a teammate?
Oh, I'll say Eddie Ford.
Eddie Ford. Yeah.
Eddie Ford.
Got some springs in him.
Yeah, very, very bouncy. Yeah.
And finally, mark of the year or goal of the year for you personally?
Oh, it has to be goal of the year. Being a smaller kind of guy, it's got to be goal of the year for me.
You'll have to carve up some territory at Marvel and that is your pocket the way Eddie
Yeah,
Betts did.
that's right, mate. Hopefully one day.
Thanks for joining me, Chaz. All the best this year, third year. And as you said, the sky's the limit for the young boys down at Arden Street with the newly appointed Alastair Clarkson. I'm sure you've got a big future ahead of you as well. 24 games down, plenty more to come. Thanks for joining me and all the best this year.
Thanks, Dill. Thanks. Really appreciate you having me on.